computer and recording now. Yes.
Awesome. So,
Oh, can you make it so I can share my screen?
Let me see. Where do I do the now? Here.
Whoever's host.
Security. Share screens. Chat, share screen. Everything should be fine. Enable. Yeah. No,
Yep.
everything is allowed.
Yeah, I got it now.
Okay.
Cool. All right. And I apologize if you can hear my daughter crying from the next room over because
No worries.
she's throwing a fit right now. Are you guys seeing this screen?
Yes. Mad Lib.
All right. So what I want to do here, I'm going to actually run it first, and I'm going to need your participation just to kind of show you what it does. So first thing we need is an adjective, so something that describes something. I'll put slimy. What do you guys got? We got 4 of these.
Smart.
Smart. Okay.
Stinky.
Stinky. All right. And flaming. Oh. No, yeah. Flaming. Great. Okay, and then we need nouns, so just like an object. We'll just say a taco. What else?
Fish.
A fish.
And a bicycle.
Bicycle and a shoe. And then a plural noun, which would just be, we'll say beds. We need another plural noun.
Streets.
Frogs, streets, and knives. Okay, Julio, body part.
Arm.
Arm, okay.
Leg.
Leg. All right, and then we need a verb ending it with ing.
Laughing.
Laughing. And then just a normal verb.
Drive.
Drive, okay. And then we'll just do a number of 65.
70. 65, you got it.
7.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. All right, so
Oh,
filled everything in. So we're going to have some fun here. So I love to drive video games. I can play them day and bicycle. My mom and fish are not too happy with my laughing so much time in front of the television shoot. Although Dad believes that these slimy games help children develop hand-arm coordination and improve their learning beds, he also seems to think they have smart side effects on one's leg. Both of my frogs think this is due to a stinky use of violence and the majority of the knives. Finally, we all arrived at a flaming compromise. After dinner, I can play 7 hours of video games, provided I help clear the taco and wash the streets.
There you go.
Yeah.
And some community service.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's awesome.
So that's the whole program. I kind of had fun with this one, but so I wanted to show you it before we go over what's actually happening. So my main class here is just called Mad Lib, and has all the instructions. And then what it does is it creates a story object, which we'll get to. And then each one of the story object has different methods to get the different things. So we have obtain adjectives, nouns, plural nouns, body parts, verbs, and numbers. Now, these are in different containers. So adjectives are in an array list, nouns are in a tree set, plural nouns in a queue, parts are in a vector, verbs in a stack, and then numbers housed in the array list. And the other thing just to be aware of, sorry, I can't see it up here. So I have a words class, which is basically just a parent, forget what the technical term is. It's like the parent class, and then the nouns, plural nouns, parts, and verbs are all like a child class. And then you have numbers, which is its own class because it's handled just a little bit different. So jumping over to the story, this is kind of like the gears behind everything, making it all happen. Pretty simple though. Basically, we just have getters and setters, and then in these different, okay, hold on, let me find it here. Okay, so we'll start here, obtain adjectives. So okay, let me tell you this before we jump in because it makes sense. So in the words class, we have basically the get user input class. So every one of these inherits that same get user input class, which is why this that's what's going on here. I'm basically calling that class to get the information, and then so I'm calling the get user input, and I'm passing in what type that it's going to ask for, and what the number is. So if you see down here where it would say, please enter verb number 2, I'm passing that into each object just so I didn't have to create a separate method for every single one. But here you'll see add adjectives, and then so just to show you on the adjectives class, this was a list, and so it used the different, or it used the add method. So it's basically your list name dot add, and then you can put whatever string you want to add into that list. So that's unique to the array list for the most part, because every one of these does something different. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead. I won't go over everything, but if you go to nouns, this was a tree set, so it's a little different on how it's handled. So let's see. You have yeah, that's right. You do add new noun. So it has the add class too, but in order to go to the next one, which in the oh yeah, so for the list, you can just add them and it just adds to the next one, like line by line. So it's not really, there's not a lot to it, but for the tree set, you have basically set it to the first line in the collection. So that's why we're calling dot first. And then, oh, I'm sorry. This is like when we're retrieving. So when we're retrieving a noun out of this tree set, we have to tell it to retrieve the first one, but we also have to tell it to remove the first one so that it's not sitting there any longer, and it'll retrieve the next one the next time. So it's a little bit different on that. And then for the plural nouns, I used a queue, and for this one it was when you're retrieving from the queue, you use this dot pull method within that class. So pull will basically pull the first one out of the queue entirely, and it removes it from the queue. if I remember correctly. And then for body parts, we used a vector, which from what I gathered, vectors are kind of a dated container or collection. I mean, so they're not used quite as much, but they can be used. I think that there's other more favorable ones now, but it was one of the unique ones that I wanted to try. And so the interesting thing about this one was you have to do element at. So you have to, when you're cycling through it, which in story, let me find it here.
So with like list, you know, if you print a list, if you print it out, it would print the order that was entered. With vectors, you had to specify what do you want to.
Yeah, there's different. There's actually a bunch of different like method calls for each of these different things, and I actually didn't go into every single one of them. Mostly was just using how to add into the collection and then how to get like the next one out. So it's kind of interesting though to see how they use different things. Like in this case, the only way I could figure out to do it was getting the element at a certain position. And so I had to actually pass the position in, which would change as, this was supposed to be body parts. Yeah. So I believe I passed it in. Sorry, I apologize. I can't actually find what I'm trying to talk about right now. Body part. Anyway, the main point though is you have to pass like I had to pass a number in so that I could know which one it's going to get out. So like in my loop, as I'm going through individually, I'm passing a number in, telling it which one to pull from the collection of the vector collection. And then verbs, this was a stack, which when I was doing the research on this, it seemed like it was another one of the ones that was not as commonly used. But the stacks were kind of more like, you add one thing to the stack and then, which was pushing. So you would push it into the stack. And then to get the top one, you would use this pop method, and it's like popping it off the top of the stack sort of idea. So it was kind of interesting, which obviously you guys can do a little more research if you want to use these, but yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how they all use different methods. And then number was actually just an array list. So as I went through the program, you do these different obtain methods, which I'd go through and tell the user to input it. It would obtain the thing, put it into a collection of its own, and then I had to use the different collection terminology and methods to get the objects back off of the collection. So and then and sorry, the last thing I wanted to show you guys is I used a map. So this was what I used in the story class in order to order everything, because again, when you are reading through the story here, like these are all like the order that I got them all in. It's not word for word order as you go. So I had to be able to map each one of those words to its correct location, which is what I did here. So so I created a map, which is for the story order. And then right here, I had to go through and manually find which location in the map it was when I wanted to pull it out. But it's cool that I could pull it out of the collection. So hold on, let me see if I can find it here. I believe, and I apologize because I was looking over this, but I ran out of time when we started. But um, yeah, so basically, I found the location of like when it would come up next in the story, and I put it into the map, so that as I went through the map, I could just get them in chronological order at the time. So that this method put them all in order in the map.
Like
That's
category
what's
and all
going
that.
on.
Okay. No, that
Yes.
makes sense.
So at that point, and then it was kind of fun. I was messing around with changing the color in the console. So that's what all this extra stuff here is, which is kind of interesting to make it turn up red.
Nice.
So um, you're okay. So this right here is what's turning the color red, but then you also have to, um,
Turn it off.
yeah, you have to turn it off. So that's what.
Interesting.
Yes, it's weird, but so you're basically saying char 27 plus this bracket 30M is changing it back to black, and bracket
Black.
31M is changing it to red. It was kind of weird because I've never done changing color in the console before. But so I had to do that before and after every single one of these to make it red, which is why it's so long and drawn out. But that was basically what I did with the different types of collections. Just kind of trying to get a little taste of every one of them. I think if I was to write this program without the collections in mind, I probably would have just used lists because they're so easy. Like, you just throw something in a list and then pull it back out. But I guess technically I could have also used arrays and things like that as well. So uh, anyway, that was the program. Just kind of a little bit of a review on some of the different types of uh, collections. Any questions you guys had or other thoughts?
No, I think that's excellent. It's a very good example of all the applications with those, and like I said, it could have been accomplished just using a simple array, but it's good to know that they could be applied or used at any time as well, the rest
Yeah.
of those collections. So we don't have to limit ourselves to one particular technology or method available.
Yeah. And I think we talked about it before, like the collections, they're like different collections are better for different uses. So, like I guess the purpose of what I'm doing, because I'm purely just working with strings and stuff, probably would have been fine to just use an array list. But when you want something that's like, first in, first out sort of thing was like the queue collection, those where you're making sure that as soon as it comes in, it's first in line, and then when you pull something from it, you're getting that one that was in first. And then, like I said, the stacks are kind of like I assume that it's similar to like the stacks when you hear people talking about like software engineering and like managing the memory stacks and different things, stack and heap, which again, some of that goes over my head still, but um, yeah, it's pretty cool to learn the different stuff. And um, the vectors, I'm kind of curious on the vector collections because that's actually a common one in C++. But the purpose of the vector in C++ was it basically was like an array, but you can basically add things in the middle or on the ends really easily. Like you can pull something off the end, but you can also like add things randomly in the middle and call them by like you can have it's kind of like an array, but you could use words instead of numbers for like ordering it and stuff. So it's like a really dynamic version of an array that's a lot easier to manage than just like because an array, you think about it, it's kind of complex to go down to number 9 and like remove it entirely, have everything shift up or shift down or things like that. But the vectors, at least in C++, could do that and pretty efficiently. And I want to say it's probably similar to the vectors in Java. I just couldn't quite tell from the little bit of research I did on them. But anyway,
Excellent.
so that's collections for today. And then, yeah, Forrest hasn't texted me back. I assume he's not coming at this point. He was gonna go over Hibernate again,
Right.
but I assume neither of you have prepared to do that. So I guess we're gonna have to forego that one this time. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover or discuss?
No, actually everything was good, and I'm sorry I'm still hearing like 75% of what you're saying. I was reading through your program, and I think it is awesome, Peter. Sorry if I get lost in some of the conversations, but yeah, it's interesting the way you did it, and also funny.
Yeah.
Let me recognize that. So it is pretty awesome. Congratulations, buddy.
And this is what I was talking about earlier about potentially doing my program around this. Like the story doesn't really change. It's just the different like fill in the blanks that you're filling in.
Yeah.
And so I could basically do with my program, have it stored in a database, the stories, and then have like a web client that gets your user input, you know, uses the servlets to connect it to your Java. You can have collections housing that user input, and then maybe call to the story objects that are housed as JSON in the database or something like that. You know, just kind of bringing all the stuff we've learned so far in the course together. I don't know. I might do that. Might try and figure out something else. But
Yeah.
That's a good start, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It would keep you. It would put you ahead of anything else that you might think of.
yeah. So.
All right, I want to stop the recording.